A folded note. That's how it started. A small, cream-colored piece of paper tucked inside the breast pocket of my husband's gray blazer, the one I was about to drop off at the dry cleaner. I almost didn't read it. After 38 years of marriage, you stop snooping through pockets. You stop checking for receipts, stop analyzing tone of voice, stop wondering what the long silences mean. You trust. Or you tell yourself you trust, because the alternative is exhausting. But the note had already fallen open in my hand, and I'd already seen the handwriting before I could stop myself. She'll love table 7. Don't be late. A. I stood there in our bedroom, still holding the blazer, reading those 7 words again and again. She'll love table 7. I wasn't at any table. My husband hadn't mentioned any dinner, any event, any table, and the handwriting looping, feminine, careful, wasn't his. I set the blazer down on the bed. I sat beside it. Our golden retriever padded in from the hallway and rested his head on my knee, the way he always does when something is wrong, and I just stared at the wall for a long moment. Then I picked up my phone and looked at the calendar. Saturday. The Hartwell Foundation Gala. The annual charity dinner my husband's firm sponsored every November. He'd mentioned it 2 weeks ago, briefly, the way you mention something you don't want examined too closely. It's mostly a client event, he'd said. Networking. Speeches. You'd be bored out of your mind. I had believed him. I'd even been a little relieved. Galas at 63, standing in heels for 3 hours making conversation with people I'll never see again. It wasn't exactly how I wanted to spend a Saturday evening. I'd told him to have fun. I'd meant it. Now I read the note again. She'll love table 7. Don't be late. She, not you. She. I folded the note back exactly as I'd found it, tucked it into the blazer pocket, and sat quietly for a very long time. Our dog fell asleep against my leg. Outside, the neighbors were raking leaves, and the sound of it, ordinary, unhurried, felt strange and far away. I told myself I was being irrational. 38 years, 3 children, the man who held my hand through 2 surgeries and my mother's funeral, and the year our youngest nearly broke us both with worry. The man who still made coffee before I woke up, who still reached for my hand in movie theaters the way he did when we were 25. But the note, she'll love table 7. I opened my laptop. The Hartwell Foundation Gala was at the Grand Meridian Hotel downtown. Black tie, 700 guests, and listed at the bottom of their website, in small gray text, volunteer opportunities available. Contact events at hartwellfoundation.org. I emailed them before I could think too carefully about what I was doing. By Thursday, I had a response, a volunteer badge, and a black server's apron. I told myself it wasn't spying. I told myself I just needed to see. There's a difference between paranoia and paying attention, and after 38 years, I deserved to pay attention. I did my hair differently. I never wear it up. My husband always said he loved it down, so I pulled it into a tight chignon and pinned it flat. I borrowed my daughter-in-law's reading glasses, the ones with the dark tortoiseshell frames. I wore a white blouse and the black apron and low practical shoes, and when I looked in the bathroom mirror, I barely recognized myself. Not because the disguise was dramatic, just because I never looked like this. I never looked like someone who was trying to disappear. I drove myself to the hotel. The volunteer coordinator, a brisk young woman named Phoebe, assigned me to the east wing of the ballroom champagne service, the greeting corridor where guests arrived. She handed me a tray and a smile and said, "Just keep moving, don't let glasses go empty, smile even when they don't." I smiled even then. The ballroom was everything you'd expect from a charity gala in November: low gold lighting, round tables draped in ivory linen, a stage with a podium and the foundation's logo in blue, centerpieces of white roses, a string quartet near the entrance, playing something classical I couldn't name. 700 people in their best clothes, doing what people do at these things, performing ease. I moved through them with my tray. He arrived at 7:14. I know because I was facing the entrance when the doors opened and the evening cold came in with the new arrivals, and I looked up the way you instinctively look when a door opens, and there he was, my husband, in his gray blazer, freshly dry cleaned, because I had gone ahead and dropped it off with his silver hair, combed back, and the blue tie I gave him for our anniversary 4 years ago. He looked handsome. He looked like himself. I watched him scan the room with the mild, good-natured expression he gets at work events, the one that means he's present, but his mind is somewhere quieter. I knew that expression better than I knew my own face in photographs. I turned away before he could see me. I kept moving, kept the tray level, smiled when someone took a glass. For 20 minutes, nothing. He found colleagues. He shook hands. He laughed at something someone said, and I watched him from across the room the way you watch someone through glass, close and untouchable at the same time. Then she appeared. She came from the direction of the bar, young, maybe early 30s. Dark hair cut short and neat, wearing a green dress that made her easy to find in any crowd. She walked directly toward my husband, and when she reached him, she leaned in and said something close to his ear, and he turned to her immediately, fully, the way you turn toward something that has your complete attention. My tray nearly tipped. She touched his arm. Just briefly, just the way a person touches an arm when they're making a point or confirming something, but I saw it from 20 feet away, and I felt it in my chest like a cold hand pressing flat against my sternum. He touched her elbow in return, guiding her slightly, and the two of them moved together through the crowd toward the back of the room, toward the east wing, toward table 7. I followed them. I told myself I was just doing my job, just circling the room, just keeping glasses filled. My hands were completely steady, which surprised me. My mind was perfectly clear and very, very cold. Table 7 was set apart from the main floor, slightly elevated on a low platform near the left wall, the kind of positioning that meant something. Not a standard table. The chairs were nicer. The centerpiece was larger. There were name cards. I approached from the side, close enough to see, far enough not to be noticed. He was looking at the name cards, rearranging them slightly with a focused, almost nervous expression I recognized as the face he wore when he was trying to get something exactly right. She was watching him, occasionally pointing, occasionally nodding. Their conversation was too low for me to catch. I stood there long enough that another volunteer touched my elbow and asked if I was all right. "Fine," I said, just getting my bearings. I walked to the kitchen. In the kitchen, behind the swinging double doors, among the clatter of plates and the controlled chaos of caterers moving too fast, I set my tray on a counter and stood very still. My heart was doing something it hadn't done in years, not racing, exactly, but loud, insistent, like something trying to get my attention. 38 years. I thought about the first apartment we shared. I thought about the way he looked at me in the delivery room 3 times, each time like the world had just rearranged itself into something better. I thought about last Tuesday, when he sat on the edge of the bed and rubbed my feet without being asked, because I'd mentioned they hurt, and I'd fallen asleep mid-sentence, and when I woke up he'd pulled a blanket over me and left the lamp on low. I thought about the note. "She'll love table 7. One of the kitchen staff asked me to take out a fresh tray, and I picked it up automatically and pushed back through the doors. The speeches began at 8. I was stationed near the back wall when the foundation's director took the podium and began thanking donors, and I watched my husband find his seat at table 7. The young woman sat 2 chairs away. Between them, a man I didn't recognize, silver-haired and broad-shouldered, who seemed to know my husband well. They were laughing. All of them, the whole table, the comfortable laugh of people who have known each other long enough to be easy together. I watched my husband's profile in the warm light. He was leaning forward slightly, listening to the man beside him, and there was something about the way he sat, relaxed, attentive, still entirely himself, that made something in my chest loosen slightly, just slightly, the way a knot loosens but doesn't yet let go. Then his phone lit up on the table. He looked at it. His expression changed, not dramatically, not guiltily, just the small, private shift of someone reading something they've been waiting for. He typed something quickly and set the phone face down. My own phone, in the pocket of my apron, buzzed. I looked at it under the cover of the tray. "Where are you?" "I've been calling. Call me back when you can." Him. He was calling me, texting me, right now, in the middle of whatever this was. I didn't know what to do with that information, so I put my phone away. The speeches continued. I kept moving. I refilled glasses. I'm not sure anyone needed refilled. Phoebe found me at one point and said I was doing wonderfully, and I thanked her with a smile that felt like it belonged to someone else. At 8:45, there was a break between speakers, and my husband stood up from table 7 and walked toward the back of the room. Toward me, though he didn't know it was me, toward the corridor where the restrooms were, just to my left. I turned slightly, keeping the tray up, letting the tortoiseshell glasses and the pinned hair do their work. He passed within 4 feet of me. I could smell his cologne, the same one he'd worn for 15 years, the one my youngest had given him that first Christmas after college, and that he'd kept buying because he said familiarity was underrated. He didn't look at me. Not because I was invisible. Just because I was the furniture of the evening, a volunteer with a tray, one of 30 in identical aprons, part of the room the way a potted plant is part of a room. You don't look at potted plants. I exhaled very slowly. He came back from the corridor 8 minutes later. He paused near the entrance of the ballroom to check his phone again, and this time his face did something different, something softer, almost relieved, and he sent one more message and went back to his table. My phone buzzed again. Just wanted to hear your voice. Having a long night. Love you. I read it 3 times. I pressed my lips together. I kept walking. At 9:15, the young woman in the green dress stood and excused herself from table 7. She walked not toward the restroom but toward the back corridor, the service area, and something stubbornness or stupidity or 38 years of needing to know made me follow her. She stopped near the volunteer station, looking at her own phone, and I approached from the side under the pretense of returning my empty tray. "Excuse me," she said, without looking up. "Do you know if the florist is still here? The arrangement for the final table setting still hasn't arrived." "I'm not sure," I said. She looked up then, assessed me briefly with the quick efficiency of someone who was managing too many things. "Can you check with the coordinator? The name on the arrangement should be," she glanced at her phone, "Patricia. Tell them it goes on the table behind the stage." "Patricia. My name is Patricia." The world tilted slightly. "What table?" I asked. My voice was completely even. I was very proud of that. "The private one. Behind the stage left curtain." She was already looking back at her phone. "It's for a surprise, so please be discreet." I walked toward the stage. Not because I was fetching the arrangement, because I needed to see. Behind the heavy burgundy curtain at stage left was a small round table I hadn't seen during setup, 6 chairs, set with the same ivory linen as the main floor, but with something additional at each place. A small framed photograph. I stepped closer. The photographs were of us. Our wedding. Our children. Newborn. Small. Grown. The farmhouse in Vermont we rented one summer when the kids were young and we had no money, and it rained for 4 days and we played cards and the children built a fort in the living room, and my husband and I sat on the porch listening to the rain and didn't need to say anything. A photograph from our 30th anniversary trip to Ireland, both of us squinting into coastal wind, my hair completely destroyed, both of us laughing. At the center of the table, a small envelope. My name on the front. His handwriting. I picked it up. I don't know why. I should have put it back. I should have walked away and gone home and waited for him to explain everything in the gentle, patient way he always explained things. But I'd spent the last 72 hours folding and unfolding a note that wasn't meant for me, and my hands opened the envelope before the rest of me could weigh in. "Patricia, 38 years ago you said yes before I even finished asking. I've been trying to deserve that yes ever since. Tonight I'm going to try again. I know you think I've been keeping secrets. I have, but only the good kind. Wait for me here at 9:45. Your husband." I sat down in one of the chairs at the private table. I sat very still. The string quartet started something new outside, something I recognized this time. Eventually, as the song that was playing the first night we danced together, which he had spent 8 years pretending not to remember, and apparently had never forgotten. The curtain moved. I looked up. He stopped when he saw me. Just for a moment, a fraction of a second, he stopped. Then he looked at the apron, the glasses, the hair, and his face did something I hadn't seen it do in a very long time. Something that was simultaneously trying not to laugh and trying not to cry, and landing somewhere between the two. "Patricia," he said. "Don't," I said. And then immediately, "How did you—" "Your eyes," he said. "I always know your eyes." He came and sat in the chair beside me, not across from me, but beside me, close, the way he sat when things were serious. Also, Phoebe texted me at 8:30. She thought you might be a journalist. I'm not a journalist. I know. I found a note. I know that too. It said she'll love table 7. He nodded slowly. It did. That's not you have to understand how that reads. I understand exactly how it reads, he said. And I'm sorry. I should have been less secretive. I thought I was being romantic. There is apparently a version of romantic that looks like suspicious, and I have achieved it. I laughed. I didn't mean to, and it came out wrong too high, too sudden, and then I pressed my fingers over my mouth because I was not going to cry in a borrowed apron at a charity gala that my husband had apparently co-opted for reasons I still didn't fully understand. Tell me, I said. He took a breath. He had the expression he always had before a long story, the one where he looked down at his hands for a moment and gathered himself, the way a person gathers themselves at the edge of something high. You remember, he said, telling me last spring that we'd never done anything really unexpected, that our whole life had been good but predictable. I did remember. We'd been sitting on the back porch and I'd had one glass of wine too many and I'd said something honest in the loose, unguarded way wine sometimes permits. I'd said, "We've been careful, haven't we? Safe. Is that the same as happy?" And he had been quiet for a long time and I'd assumed it stung and felt guilty, and eventually we'd gone inside. I thought about that for months, he said. And then I called your sister, my sister, who lived in Seattle and called me every Sunday and was terrible at keeping secrets and had been acting strange since August in a way I hadn't been able to explain. And your daughter-in-law, he said, and your friend Margaret from book club, who you told about Italy. Italy. 15 years ago I had said, just once, easily forgettable, I want to see Tuscany, before I'm too old to walk uphill. And your son, who remembered the photograph from Vermont, he continued, and your youngest, who helped me find the song that was still playing outside the curtain. Andrea, the woman in the green dress, she's the foundation's event coordinator. I hired her 3 months ago to arrange the private table. She handled all of it. He paused. She was the one who wrote the note. I asked her to remind me which table we were using, and she put it in writing because she knows I lose things, and I put it in my blazer and forgot it was there. I looked at him. He looked back at me. He had very dark eyes for a man with silver hair, which had always seemed like a contradiction I liked. Where are our children right now? I asked. He checked his watch. Walking through the main ballroom door in approximately 6 minutes. Our children flew here. Your sister drove. Margaret is already here. She's been at table 7 all night. That was the point of table 7. Your closest people, in one room, because the last time we were all together was your mother's funeral, I said. 4 years ago? Yes. I looked at the photographs on the table. The rain in Vermont, Ireland in the wind, the newborn faces of our children, astonished by light. You've been planning this for 3 months, I said. 5, he said. I started in June. I am not good at surprises. You are terrible at surprises. I know. You put the note in your own blazer and forgot about it. In my defense, there is no defense. In my defense, he continued mildly, I was managing 17 separate moving parts, including flights from 3 different cities and a song request for a string quartet that took 6 weeks because apparently our song is not in their standard repertoire. What song is it? You don't know our song? I know our song. I want to hear you say it. He said it. The quiet little melody that had played in a rented hall in 1986 when we were 25 and barely knew what we were promising each other, only that we meant every word of it. I thought about what you said on the porch, he said. I've been careful my whole life. Careful was good. Careful got us here. And here is wonderful. But you were right that I'd never done anything wild. And so I thought. He looked at the photographs again. I thought I'd try. By secretly arranging a party. By secretly arranging a party, he confirmed. With our children and your sister and your best friend and a table full of 38 years of photographs. To tell you that I would say yes to you again without thinking twice. Every version of you, every year. I was quiet for a moment. I followed you here in a volunteer apron, I said. You did. I thought you were. I know what you thought. I wasn't entirely wrong to wonder. No, he said honestly. I should have been better at communicating. That's fair. I got so deep into the planning that I forgot you were outside of it, watching something that looked wrong from the outside. He put his hand over mine on the table, the same gesture from every movie theater in 38 years, the same weight and warmth. I'm sorry for that part. The rest, I'm not sorry for at all. The curtain moved. My daughter-in-law's face appeared first, scanning, then finding me, then breaking into the wide, helpless grin of someone who has been sitting on a secret for 5 months. Behind her, my son, tall and gray at the temples like his father, trying and failing to look casual. Then our youngest, who crossed the small space in 3 steps and put both arms around me before I could stand, and I held on with both hands and felt the size of 38 years and all the ordinary, extraordinary days of it pressing warm against my chest. My sister came in, wiping her eyes before anyone had said anything worth crying about, which was so completely like her that I laughed out loud. Margaret was still in the ballroom. She appeared at the curtain edge holding a champagne glass and said, "You followed him in an apron?" loudly enough that a passing waiter slowed down to look. We stayed behind that curtain for a long time. The gala continued outside 700 people who had no idea that in the small space behind the stage-left curtain, a family was sitting at a table covered in photographs, drinking the champagne Margaret had brought, telling the story of Vermont and the rain, the story of Ireland and the wind, the story of every year in between. My husband sat beside me the whole time, not across from me, beside me. At some point, someone found a better bottle of wine. At some point, our youngest fell asleep against his brother's shoulder the way he used to fall asleep in the car on long drives home when he was small. At some point, the string quartet outside shifted into something louder, more festive, and the sound of it came through the curtain like weather, like something moving on the other side of a wall. I leaned toward my husband's shoulder and he tilted his head to rest it briefly against mine. "Next time," I said quietly, "just tell me." "Next time," he said, "I will. Unless the secret is good enough." The apron was not flattering. "The apron," he said, "was very flattering. Also, Phoebe said you were the best volunteer she had all night and asked if you were available in December. Tell Phoebe I'm retired." "You're not retired." "I'm retired from volunteering at events where my husband might be having an affair. That is a very specific retirement." "I've had a very specific evening." He laughed. I laughed. Our son looked over at us with the expression adult children wear when their parents are being ridiculous in a way that is also, obviously, love, half embarrassed, half relieved, entirely familiar. Outside, the gala was winding down. Inside our small curtained corner of it, nobody moved to leave. Later that night, driving home through streets lined with the last of the autumn leaves catching in the headlights, my husband told me about the trip. 2 weeks. Portugal in the spring. We'd both talked about Portugal once, briefly, years ago, the way you mention a place you don't quite believe you'll ever see. The itinerary was still flexible. He'd left room for the things we hadn't thought to want yet. I listened to him describe it, the cork forests in the Alentejo, the tram lines in Lisbon, the small coastal town a colleague had recommended where the houses were painted every color and the fish was caught that morning. I watched his hands on the steering wheel. Familiar hands, with the small scar on the left one from a kitchen accident in 1994, and the ring that had been there so long it had left an indent in the skin beneath it when he took it off for surgery years ago. "You planned the whole thing," I said. "Most of it. You hired a coordinator. Andrea is very good at her job. You remembered Portugal." "I remember everything you say." He glanced at me briefly. "You think I don't, but I do." I thought about all the things I'd said in 38 years, the careless things and the careful things. The things said in frustration and the things said in the dark and the things said quietly on a porch with one too many glasses of wine, honest in the way honesty sometimes requires loosening to come out. He'd been listening to all of it. We pulled into our driveway. The golden retriever met us at the door in the way he always did, as though every return, no matter how brief the departure, was worth celebrating completely. My husband bent down and scratched behind both ears with both hands, the way the dog required. I stood in the doorway and looked at the two of them. "I want to say something," I said. My husband looked up. "I'm sorry I followed you. I'm not sorry I went, but I'm sorry I doubted." He stood up. He looked at me for a moment with the expression I couldn't name when I was 25, but knew completely now, the one that meant he was paying full attention, that nothing else in the room existed while he was looking at me. "Don't be sorry," he said. "After 38 years, you're allowed to check. That's very forgiving. You put on an apron and a disguise and drove downtown on a Saturday because you were scared," he said. "That's not suspicious. That's love. Scared love is still love." I didn't have an answer for that. I'm not sure there was one. We went inside. The dog settled at the end of the bed. My husband made tea, he always made tea, at the end of difficult evenings, a habit from somewhere so deep in our shared history that neither of us remembered its origin anymore, and we sat at the kitchen table the way we had sat at so many kitchen tables over so many years, with the ordinary light of a Tuesday night and the quiet of a house that knew us. He put a cup in front of me and sat down. "Portugal," I said. "Portugal," he said. Outside, the last leaves came off the oak tree in the backyard. Inside, the tea was hot, and the light was warm, and the man across from me had remembered, after all this time, every word I'd ever thought didn't matter. 38 years. And I would have said yes again without finishing the question.